Ready? Boker Tov. Okay, so we have a pretty tough amud today. We're doing Kaf Aleph Amud Aleph. We're holding on the bottom of Kaf Aleph Amud Bet, all the way on the bottom, where it says Itmar. So we're discussing a Kohen Gadol doing Yibum to an Almana. So Itmar. Biat Kohen Gadol ba'Almana, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Elazar. Kaf Amud Bet, last line. So you have with regard to a Kohen Gadol doing Yibum to an Almana, we have a Machlok Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. Chad Amar Eina Poteret Tzarata, Chad Amar Poteret Tzarata. One opinion says that if a Kohen Gadol does Yibum to an Almana, he's Poter the Tzara. The other opinion says he's not Poter the Tzara. Meaning one says the Yibum is a good Yibum, one says the Yibum is nothing. Now, Ba'almana mina nisuin kolyam lo pligi de lo patra. Everyone agrees if it's an almana that is not a betula, so everyone agrees in that case the yibum is not good. There's no mitzvah of yibum. He didn't accomplish anything. It doesn't do anything. That everyone agrees. If it was an almana who was not a betula, why? De'en aseh doche lo ta'aseh v'aseh, because she is a lo ta'aseh and an aseh to be with for the Kohen Gadol, because she's not a betula and she's an almana. So the mitzvah of yibum is not relevant. It doesn't even come into the picture because the aseh of yibum is not doche, the lo ta'aseh v'aseh of almana who's not a betula to a Kohen Gadol. So that everyone agrees that doesn't work. They're arguing about an almana who is still a betula. That's when they have a machloket if the yibum that is done by the Kohen Gadol to this almana, if it's a valid yibum and it's poter the tzara. Man damar poteret ati aseh v'dachi lo ta'aseh. One opinion says the aseh of yibum is doche the lo ta'aseh of almana to Kohen Gadol, and therefore the yibum is a good yibum. Uman damar ena poteret, the opinion that says that it doesn't poter the tzara, lo ati aseh v'dachi lo ta'aseh. The aseh of yibum does not override the lo ta'aseh of almana to Kohen Gadol. Why? Kevan de'efshar b'chalitza, because he has an option of chalitza. So that's the machloket over here. Do we say since he has an option of chalitza that aseh doesn't override the lo ta'aseh, or do we say no, the aseh overrides the lo ta'aseh? So metive, the Gemara asks a question against one of the opinions. V'im ba'alu kanu. We said very clearly in a braita that we saw yesterday that if the Kohen Gadol does the yibum, it's a good yibum. So, no, well, that's exactly what we're discussing right now. We're saying that he can. But aseh of yibum is doche the lo ta'aseh of being with the.
Kohen Gadol cannot marry any mark of almana.
The Gemara is saying the Gemara is saying that aseh is doche the lo ta'aseh of almana to Kohen Gadol, and therefore the biyah is a good biyah and the yibum is a good yibum. Now they're not allowed to stay together long term, but that initial first biyah that they have, there's a mitzvah of yibum that overrides the lo ta'aseh of almana to Kohen Gadol. So tiyufta. So this is a disproof to the opinion that says that the aseh doesn't override the lo ta'aseh. You see over here that it does. So lema tiavi nami tiyufta the Reish Lakish. We should say also that it's a tiyufta of Reish Lakish. It disproves Reish Lakish. So because what did Reish Lakish say? Reish Lakish said that anytime you have an aseh and lo ta'aseh, if you can do both, then aseh is not doche lo ta'aseh. So over here, since you could do chalitza, aseh doesn't override the lo ta'aseh, but we see over here that it does. So Amar Lacha Reish Lakish ki amina ana hecha demekayimem mitzvah. When do I say the aseh doesn't override the lo ta'aseh? When you could do both and you're still mekayim the mitzvah. Val hacha chalitza b'mkom yibum lav mitzvahi. But in this scenario, if you choose to do chalitza, that's not considered a mitzvah compared to yibum. So therefore, even Reish Lakish would agree in this scenario, meaning he would agree in general that aseh is dochelot aseh when you're performing the mitzvah. It's just over here you're not performing the mitzvah if you do chalitza. Okay, Amar Rava. Right, so Reish Lakish agrees to this. Amar Rava. Remez l'shniot min Torah minayin. Where do we see a remez to shniot min Torah? Okay, so this is going back. This is going to be the topic of the next daf. Yeah. So we said in the Mishnah there's a concept of shniot la'arayot. Shniot la'arayot are secondary arayot derabanan. So there's certain. So the Gemara is going to list all of them in halfway through the daf. But for now, we just want to know, where do we see that Chachamim saw such a concept they saw a remez for this, that they should make such a gzera. So Amar Rava remez l'shniot min Torah minayin shneimar. We have to go a little bit fast because the bottom half of the Amud is going to be a lot of cases. Shneimar ki et kol ha'toevot ha'el asu anshe ha'aretz. So by arayot, the pasuk says the people did a lot of toevot ha'el, these toevot. So ha'el kashot. Ha'el means like these ones, like the bad ones. They were like serious bad ones. Mechlal di'ika rakot. It sounds like there's lighter arayot also. Umay ninhu shniyot. That's shniyot, the arayot derabanan. So you see from the word toevot ha'el, these big, heavy, bad ones, that there's lighter arayot also. So now the Gemara just questions this. Umay mashma. How do you know that when it says ha'el, it means something that's very serious and strict? It says in the pasuk, ve'et eleh haaretz. It says the eleh haaretz, the sarim of the land, the officers, the generals. So that's a lashon of something hard. Lakach. That's part of the pasuk. Lema pliga de Rabbi Levi ad Rabbi Levi. Lema pliga de Rabbi Levi. So the Gemara is suggesting this whole idea that we're saying that ha'el is something that's harsh and strict. This argues with Rabbi Levi. Dam Rabbi Levi kashe onshin shel midot yoter mi onshin shel arayot. Rabbi Levi teaches that cheating in business by mismeasuring something, putting fake weights in a person's item to rip off people in business, that's worse. The punishment for that is worse than for arayot. Why? Because by arayot it says toevot ha'el, but by midot, by mismeasuring, it says toevot ha'ele. It says ele. So he's saying ele is worse. So the Gemara says no. El kashe ve'ele kashe me'el. It's true. El is something harsh. Ele is something more harsh. So still, toevot ha'el ba'arayot is still something that's harsh and strict. So the Gemara says gabe arayot namiktiv ele. It also says ele by arayot. So the Gemara says no hahu lemeute midot mikaret. That ele is not coming to teach me how harsh it is. It's coming to teach me a different halacha. That pasuk is telling us that arayot get karet. So I would have thought that if mismeasuring the midot of weighing things out in business and cheating people in business is worse than arayot, maybe that's also going to be karet. Therefore it says no, toevot ha'ele, meaning to tell you specifically arayot and not midot gets karet. But in terms of the severity, it's not coming to teach me how severe it is. Toevot ha'el teaches me arayot are kashim, and by midot it says toevot ha'ele, that teaches me that midot, that measuring, is even worse. Okay, so the Gemara says, "My chumraihu." Why are they more machmir than arayot? So hani efshar b'tshuva, hani lo efshar b'tshuva. Arayot, so a person can do teshuvah. He did something wrong. He was with somebody that he wasn't supposed to be with. Okay, but he could do teshuvah for it. When it comes to cheating people in business, it's much harder to do teshuvah. Why? Because he doesn't know who he even stole from. He was running his business wrong for the past 10 years, and he overcharged so many people, he doesn't even know who to give back to. even though the Gemara says that if a person stole and he doesn't know who he stole from, he should do tzorchei rabim with the money to give back to the tzibur. But the Rishonim explain that's not. Rashi says here. Other Rishonim explain that's not really complete full teshuvah. It's nearly impossible to do. It's very hard to do full teshuvah for cheating in business, as opposed to arayot that it's possible to do full teshuvah. Okay, Rav Yehuda Amar Mehacha. Rav Yehuda says we have a remez for shniyot la'arayot, for arayot d'Rabbanan, from the following pasuk by Shlomo HaMelech. It says ve'izin v'chiker tikin mishalim harbe. Shlomo HaMelech, it says he was izin v'chiker, literally means he listened and he investigated, delved into, and made many mishalim. But izen also comes from the word ozen, which means a handle. So he made handles to the kli, which means he made it easier to make sure that the kli is lifted. Before Shlomo came and he made certain takanot, the Torah was like a basket that didn't have any handles, and it was very hard to pick up. Shlomo came, he made the rabbanans that made it easier to make sure a person doesn't stumble in the deoraitas. It's like making handles for the basket. Rabbi Yoshia Amar Me'acha. Rabbi Yoshia says we know shniyot la'arayot from here. It says Peraehu, the pasuk is a pasuk in Mishlei. It says Peraehu al ta'avorbo. It says you let it grow and you won't be over on it. Shatem alav va'avor. Remove yourself from it, and then you're going to be over. You're going to violate it. Now the point is, you see from the pasuk, the first part of the pasuk, Pereu al ta'avorbo. If you let it grow, meaning you let the isurim grow, add on to the isurim, then you'll make sure that you won't be over the isurei deoraita. Amar Rav Ashi, mashal de Rabbi Yoshi lemad davar domeh. So Rav Ashi gives a mashal for this. Ladam mishamer pardes. A person who's guarding, he's guarding a yard, a field. So mishamrom b'bachutz. If he's guarding it from outside, he's standing by the gate to make sure nobody enters. So kulo mishtamer. The whole thing is going to be guarded. Mishamrom b'bifnim. But if he's standing inside, so shilifanav mishtamer. Whatever he could see, whatever's in front of him, so that's guarded. But shilacharav eno mishtamer. Whatever's behind him, somebody comes in behind him, he's not going to be able to see. So the Gemara says that's the nimshal is the gzera. The gzera d'Rabbanan is like, okay, he's standing outside, so he's guarding it from outside. That way nobody will come inside. But if he's inside guarding it, then he's not going to be able to take care of everything. V'had Rav Ashi bedutahi. The Gemara says this of Rav Ashi is beduta. It's not the best mashal. The mashal has a little bit of a fault. So hatam shilfanav miya mishtamer. In the mashal, at least the guy who's watching it from inside, so what's in front of him, he's gonna be able to guard. But in the nimshal, in the case of the gizera d'Rabbanan of shniyot la'arayot versus actual arayot, so ilav shniyot, if not for the gizera d'Rabbanan, paga be'erva gufa, he's gonna be over nothing's gonna be watched. Meaning, in the mashal, okay, half of the field is watched. He's standing in the middle of the field, so he's watching half of the field. So half of the field is protected, but the other half is not protected. But in the nimshal, if you don't have a derabanan, none of it is protected, because it's going to over the deoraita also. Okay, Rav Kahana Amar Me'acha. Rav Kahana says, from you, Shmartem et Mishmarti. From there, we see the concept of Shniyot La'arayot, that a person has to be Shomer Hashem's Mishmer to add on to the Isurei Arayot. So the Gemara says, Asu Mishmeret leMishmarti. Do make a Mishmeret for my Mishmeret. So Amalei Abai Rav Yosef. How Deoraita? Abai says to Rav Yosef, this is Deoraita. This is not a Deraban. This is Deoraita. Ushmartem Mishmarti is a pasuk Deoraita. So he said, no, Deoraita Pirshu Rabbanan. It is the pasuk is Deoraita. The concept is Deoraita, but the Rabbanan interpreted it as Shniyot. The Rabbanan picked which Shniyot, which people are included in this Gzera Rabbanan.
Or it's Midiraisa, but it's...
At this point, we're saying the concept is Deoraita. We have things like this. We have, for example, Hilchot Chol HaMoed. According to some Rishonim, the concept is deoraita. Chachamim picked which melachot are going to be, like the discretion was given over to the Chachamim to decide which things are included in the Isur deoraita. But the etzem Isur is deoraita. So he says deoraita pirshu Rabbanan. The concept is deoraita, but the Rabbanan decided which things are going to be included in Asu Mishmeret Mishmarti. So the Gemara says Kol Torah Nami pirshu Rabbanan. Everything in the Torah is really the Rabbanan are the ones that are being version. Midir Rabbanan v'kras machta b'alma. So really the Gemara says it's Midir Rabbanan. And this pasuk of Ushmartem Mishmarti is just an asmachta b'alma. Okay, so what did we get up to now? A few different mikorot for the concept of shniyot la'arayot, that Chachamim instituted the certain ladies that are mutarot mideoraita to the man, but midirabanan they're asur. Okay, now the Gemara is going to tell us who are the shniyot la'arayot. So this is the part where we get into all the cases. Tan Rabbanan, mahem shniyot. What are the cases of shniyot? So first one is em imo. Okay, so his mother's mother. That's pretty simple. Yeah, his mother is asura mideoraita. So his mother's mother, Chachamim also made asur. Okay, ve'em aviv, and his father's mother. So now his father is not an erva. His father is not an erva, but since his mother's mother is asura, his father's mother also was made asura. Ve'eshet avi aviv, his father's wife. Okay, that means his grandfather's wife. So his father's wife is asura midoraita. So his father's wife, Rabbanan included. Ve'eshet avi imo, and his mother's father's wife. If his father's wife is asur, his mother's father's wife is also gonna be asura. So far, these are the easy cases. Ve'eshet achiav minaim. Okay, so this case, it's his father has a brother, and they only share a mother. Okay, so his father's brother that he only shares a mother with, his wife. Okay, if this guy dies or divorces his wife, would be asura midirabanan to his nephew. So midioraita, if these two brothers share a father, if midioraita, if they share a father, this is your uncle's wife is asura. Midirabanan, if they share just a mother, it's asura. Meaning midioraita, the uncle's wife, if he's your uncle that they only share a mother with your father, then midioraita, that wouldn't be an issue. It's only midirabanan. Okay. Ve'eshet achi ha'em min ha'av. So next case. So it's the mother's brother's wife. Eshet achi ha'em min ha'av. She only shares a father with that brother. So you have his mother has a brother that she only shares a father with. His wife would be asrami derabanan. Okay. Ve'kalat beno, his son's daughter-in-law. So he has a son, his son's daughter-in-law. His daughter-in-law is asura midioraita. His son's daughter-in-law, Chachamim added on. And kalat bito, also his daughter's daughter-in-law. Okay. Umutar adam be'eshet chamiv. A person is allowed to marry the wife of his father-in-law. Okay, who's not his mother-in-law. So
stepmother.
His wife's stepmother. It's his wife's stepmother. Okay, so this guy, you see in this case, here we'll read the names. You have Moshe is married to this lady over here. Her name is Bilha. Her mother and father are Yosef and Leah. Okay, now her father also has another wife, Esther. So this guy, Moshe, he's allowed to marry his wife's stepmother. If his father-in-law dies, he's allowed to marry his wife's stepmother. He is allowed. This is allowed. His father-in-law's wife, that's not his mother-in-law. Okay? Uve'eshet chorgo. He's also allowed to marry his stepson's... Eshet chorgo. Eshet chorgo is this case. You have this guy over here. What's his name?
Whatever.
Okay, whatever. This guy over here. So... He married a lady who already has a son. Okay, so this is his stepson. Okay, his stepson's wife is allowed.
Who?
To him. Okay, it's his stepson's wife. There's no blood. He's married to this woman who already had a child.
His daughter-in-law?
No, stepson is not his stepson.
His daughter-in-law, yeah.
What? No. Daughter-in-law is a different thing. It's his own son's wife. that's asur midoraita. This is not his own son. This is, he married a woman who already had a son, and then that guy dies. He's allowed to marry his wife.
I know.
Okay.
It's like a daughter.
Ve'asur bebat chorgo, but he's not allowed to marry this guy's daughter. Why? So it's interesting. He can't marry his stepson's daughter, but he can marry his stepson's wife. Now, why can't he marry his stepson's daughter? So that's actually deoraita, because it says you can't marry a woman and her daughter, and bat bita and bat bena also the Torah says you can't marry. So he can't marry this woman and her granddaughter, but he can marry this woman and her daughter-in-law. Right? That he would be allowed to do. Okay. Chorgo asur bebat chorgo. Chogro mutar beishto uvito. His stepson would be allowed to marry his other wife and a different daughter that he has. So this actually, there are a few cases that this happened, that a man who already has a daughter marries a woman who already has a son. They're allowed to get married, and also the son, his stepson, is allowed to marry his wife, a different wife that's not the mother of the stepson. Ve'eshet chorgo omeret lo ani muteret lecha ubiti asura lecha. So it comes out that eshet chorgo, the wife, is the same case that we just had. The wife of his stepson could say, okay, you know what, I could marry you, because these two are allowed to marry, but my daughter cannot marry you. So it's just an interesting thing. She is muteret, and the daughter is actually asura midioraita, because isha ubat bena, he can't marry. So he can't marry her and her granddaughter, but he can marry her and her daughter-in-law. So this lady over here, she's able to tell this man, I can marry you, but my daughter, who's her, cannot marry you. Bat chorgo deoraita. So that was the braita. Now the Gemara gets into it. Bat chorgo deoraita. The Gemara says, what do you mean? The daughter of his stepson is deoraita. Dichtiv et bat bena et bat bita. It says that you can't marry a woman and her grandchild. So this is not a shniot la'arayot. This is not a derabanan. He can't marry this woman and a grandchild. So the Gemara says, Mishum de Kabai Lamidni Sefa. The Gemara says, you're right. It really, that one is not a shniya. That's an isur deoraita, marrying a woman and her granddaughter. It just mentions it in this braita because it wants to set up the braita to say this case where his stepson's wife is able to say, oh, I could marry you, but my daughter can't marry you, just to create that contrast. Mishum de Kabai Lamidni Sefa, that eshet chorgo omeret lo ani muteret lach ubiti asura lach, that his stepson's wife could say, I'm muteret to you and my daughter is asura to you. V'af agav de biti asura lach am deoraita, even though my daughter is asura to you deoraita, bedidi lo gazur be Rabbanan. The Rabbanan didn't make a gezerah against me, against the stepson's wife to the man. So therefore, Tana Reisha Nami bat chorgo. So therefore, the Reisha also said a case of bat chorgo, of the stepson's daughter, even though that's a asur midoraita, but it put it in there to contrast the stepson's wife that's muteret versus the stepson's daughter that's asura midoraita. So the Gemara says, Yihachi eshet chamiv nami. So if that's the case, why don't we say eshet chamiv? Why don't we say the case of the wife of the father-in-law? Okay, so you have this guy. Here's his father-in-law. So we're starting off with this guy over here. Okay, he is Adam. Okay, he's married to Esther, who's the daughter of Moshe and Pua. Okay, a lot of interesting names. The point is, you have the visual. So you have Adam is married to Esther. This is his father-in-law. This is the father-in-law's wife, who is muteret, but her daughter is going to be asura, right? Why? Because her daughter, this lady, she's muteret, right? It's his wife's stepmother. She's muteret. But her daughter is going to be her wife's half-sister. They share a father. Her daughter is going to be asura to him. So she can say to him also, same thing. I'm muteret to you, but my daughter is asura to you. So the Gemara says, if you want to bring out these interesting cases where the lady says, I'm muteret, but my daughter is asura. So here's another example. Why didn't we bring it? Why don't we say this?
Forget about my daughter. Get me.
So why didn't the Gemara make this contrast? So, Iachi ish t'chamiv nami tema ani muteret lecha ubiti asura lecha. Why don't we make this contrast where she says the father-in-law's wife says I'm muteret to you, but my daughter is asura to you. Dehavi achot ishto, because it's gonna be the daughter is gonna be achot ishto. It's gonna be the wife's sister that they share a father with. So the Gemara says ha psikale ha lo psikale. The case of this one of the wife's sister. So in this case, she's not asura forever. She's only asura as long as the wife is alive. So it's not as lasting of an isur. Therefore, we're not necessarily bringing out the contrast. Whereas in this case, where this lady is saying, I'm muter to you, my daughter is asura to you, doesn't matter. Even if she dies and his wife, that doesn't matter. He can't take the daughter. It's not the same as marrying two sisters, which the sister becomes muteret after the one that he's married to dies. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Amar Rav. Arba'a Nashim, I just want to try to turn the page because next Amud is also going to be a long Amud. Amar Rav. Arba'a Nashim yesh lahen hefsek. So he said, we listed 8, there were 8 shniyot la'arayot that we listed. He said, there's really more, which we're going to come to on the next Amud, but for now there's 8. He says 4 of them, yesh lahem hefsek. 4 of them have a hefsek, which means 4 of them, they pause. They end somewhere. The other ones don't end. Meaning, let's just go back to this example. You have mother was deoraita, aim imo was a shniya. So aim imo, aim imo goes up and up all generations, or down and down all generations. So 4 of them have a stop. The rest they just go on forever. V'nakit Rav b'yedei tlat. Rav said 4 of them they have a stop. I know 3 of them. Okay, one of them is Eshet Achi Ha'em Min Ha'av. Okay, so that's this case. So his uncle basically that his mother only shares a father with. So that it's only his mother's brother's wife, but not his mother's brother's wife. That would be muter, right? This case, his mother's
His uncle's wife.
His uncle's wife, but it's an uncle that his mother only shares a father with. So if it's his mother's, if it's great uncle, then that's fine. Only uncles is asura. That one it stops after the first generation, doesn't continue on to the next generation. Ve'eshet achi ha'av minaim. Same thing with his father's brother, his uncle from his father's side that he only shares a mother with. So his father's brother's wife, that also it's only that generation. But if it's his father's if it's his father's brother's wife, then she would be muteret. The kalato, and his daughter-in-law also is only one generation. Now daughter-in-law doesn't mean his daughter-in-law. That's asura deoraita. Daughter-in-law, Rashi explains, and the Gemara is going to explain, means his daughter's daughter-in-law. His daughter's daughter-in-law is asura, but his daughter's daughter-in-law, basically his granddaughter's daughter-in-law, his great-grandson's wife, would technically be muteret. V'ziri mosif, and Ziri, so that was Rav. Rav said those 3. Ziri said, I know the 4th one. Ziri mosif, af eshet avi imo. Eshet avi imo, the wife of his father's mother. Okay, so his father's mother's wife would be asura, but his mother's father's wife would be asura. His mother's father's wife, one generation more, Ziri says, would be muteret. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak v'simanech, the siman to remember what Ziri adds on, the ilah de Rav. He went one generation above Rav, because Rav said mother's brother, right? Mother's brother's wife. Ziri adds on mother's father's wife. So he went one generation above Rav. V'Rav, how come Rav doesn't add on this case of mother's father's wife, that the next generation would be muteret, mother's father's wife? Avi aviv, because mother's father's wife will get mixed up with father's father's
father's
wife.
wife.
What?
So mother's father's wife. What is it? It's like a
Fourth generation. His mother's father's wife would be muteret.
We're talking about 4 generations.
Yeah. Okay, V'ze'iri. What does Ze'iri respond? Meaning, the Gemara says Rav has a good claim. Rav is saying that this gets mixed up with father's wife, which we said goes for all the generations. So Ze'iri says no. Lahatam shchiach v'azil, la'achalo shchiach v'azil. That by the father's family, when it says father's family, so that it's more common that he'll be around them, and it's more common that he's closer to them, and that has to remain asur. But his mother's family, not as much. Okay, so I guess we'll we'll save the rest.
Why Gemara getting this kind of